Hi, everyone. Grace Morgan with Taxpayers Protection Alliance here. And today I'm joined by Julie Gunlock, who is Director of the Center for Progress and Innovation at the Independent Women's Forum. Julie, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we are kind of always in the same space when it comes to harm reduction and vaping. And as you are, I'm sure, aware, Sunday is World No Tobacco Day, designated by the WHO. And it seems that over the past year or so, the WHO has lumped in vaping and nicotine products in with the issue of tobacco. Why do you see this as a problem?
It's a huge problem because conflating those two issues confuses people, especially people who are trying to quit smoking. This is a demographic of people, millions of people around the world still smoke, and millions have been aided by vaping products to quit a far more dangerous habit. Look, I'm a mother of 3 kids. One of my children is in middle school where, the narrative is everyone's vaping, and he has certainly seen it. And I don't want my children vaping. I don't vape. But I certainly want these products available to current smokers who may want a product that helps them quit. And we've seen evidence that this product, vaping e-cigarettes, particularly help women quit. And there's a variety of reasons for that, namely that women don't respond as well to other smoking cessation products such as patches and gum. But when the WHO is a respected organization. If you talk to anybody on the street, they will likely say, oh, the World Health Organization, this is a respected organization.
Mm-hmm.
And when they are spreading misinformation, when they are sort of getting into activism, we've seen them get into some anti-vaping activism. This is just a tragedy. Vaping is a real public health win. And if anything, they should be guiding current smokers to switch to vaping as a way to quit the habit entirely.
Absolutely. And it's important to note that these vaping e-cigarette products are 95% safer than traditional cigarettes and have been found to be 2 times as effective as other nicotine replacement therapies. When adult smokers are trying to quit, these products are known to be helpful, and to see the WHO and world governments just totally denouncing them is really discouraging. So Julie, you've worked in the harm reduction space for a while now. What have you seen just over the last year from the FDA, WHO in terms of public health and their approach to alternative products?
Well, I think for even more than a year, I've seen these agencies, government agencies and international agencies, and also sort of the nonprofit world, sort of generating hysteria about vaping. And again, we have a lot of this conflating issues going on where we might have a problem with teens vaping. And I'm not going to sit here and say we don't have a problem with this, although I will say it is a small problem. It is not as big a problem as some of these agencies want it out to be. But again, you have this they conflate these issues where they say, okay, there might be too many teens vaping, so we have to throw the bathwater out with the baby. And did I get that right? The baby out with the bathwater, but you get the point where they want to throw vaping out entirely. It ignores the fact, as I mentioned earlier, that vaping has proven to be an incredibly effective tool, a smoking cessation tool, a harm reduction tool. And the fact that these public health agencies are unwilling to recognize, but it's not just that, they're not willing to recognize the victories. They are actually spreading misinformation, and we are seeing it at the top levels of the FDA. I mean, when these teens came down with this sort of mysterious lung disease and nobody knew what it was, you had the head of the FDA willing to jump the gun and say, you know what, and they didn't just say, hey, we think that this is associated with vaping. They actually told current vapers to stop vaping. Yeah. And what would that do? That would drive them back to cigarettes. And it turns out it had nothing to do with the actual e-cigarette mechanism. It had nothing to do with legal and regulated vaping. It had everything to do with people buying things off the black market. And they later sort of came to this, and it's kind of, I always sort of relate this. If you're not on Twitter, you might not understand this analogy, but you have the tweet that goes out that gets 1 million retweets and 1 million likes, and then you get the correction that gets like 3 retweets. It's the same thing with these federal agencies. They put out this incredibly terrifying information, and then they might, I don't know, get around to 3 months later finding the facts. And, they put out a press release. By then, the press has moved on. Mm-hmm. And so you have consumers, you have parents like me, you have people who are considering switching to vaping in order to quit smoking, who are suddenly like, well, I heard it's dangerous. And they never hear that it's 95% safer. They never hear that millions of people have had success quitting that way. So that's what I see as the major issues, is this constant drumbeat of alarmism when it comes to vaping. Very little good news, very little positive information shared by these agencies.
Absolutely. So going along the same lines of misinformation, hysteria, the WHO consistently puts out misinformation about vaping and harm reduction. We've seen this on Twitter. They had a long Twitter thread in January detailing all of these crazy things that happen when you start vaping, from lung damage to the e-liquid burning skin. Why do you think they have such a vendetta against products that could really benefit the public health?
Well, we've all been through, I don't have to say, if you're someone who's experienced this, we have all experienced the coronavirus shutdowns and the disruptions in our lives. And if you look at some of the reporting on how the WHO behaved early on, when this disease first emerged in Wuhan, China, it is pretty shocking how irresponsible the WHO was, how they were willing to hide information and keep information quiet from the greater international community in order to protect China from any embarrassment. And we know that China is very concerned about how they appear on the world stage and want to appear advanced and always in control. And so the WHO is definitely complicit in hiding this information. The WHO's treatment of Taiwan, ignoring Taiwan's warnings, ignoring the great work that Taiwan did to head off this disease, and failing to inform, again, member countries of what Taiwan was doing to head off this disease. So I bring this up because it's a very current example of how we are all paying. You don't have to be a vapor or an e-cigarette user or a smoker who's considering switching to understand how the corruption inside the WHO affects us all. And I use that example to then pivot over to vaping, what they have done to spread misinformation about vaping and about the promise of this incredible product to help people quit a truly deadly disease is so irresponsible and so upsetting to someone who sees people struggle. And many people in this space talk to smokers who say, who have these horrible stories. I've tried for years. My family wants me to quit. I've ruined relationships. I can't quit. I keep going back to it. And yet you have this privately created, innovative product that is giving people hope. And you have these very powerful agencies spreading the misinformation about it. And again, really, this misinformation is directly leading to deaths and disease. And so you don't have to be a vapor to understand the terrible behavior of the WHO. You just have to, look at the fact that you probably haven't left your house in a couple months to see the effects on the population. We really need some serious reforms at the WHO.
Yeah, I completely agree. And obviously, President Trump agrees as well. We've seen very strong action being taken from the administration, which is very encouraging to know that he is recognizing that it's not just something that's passing him by. We've heard a lot of members of Congress calling on investigations into the coronavirus reaction, but also just their general mishandling of and lack of transparency. I think that's another huge issue that plagues the WHO is where is the money going? Where is any of the money that the U.S. taxpayers provide to the WHO going? Right. It's not going to benefit American values and ideas. That's for sure. So you're a mom of 3 boys. We hear a lot about children vaping. And flavor bans. Flavors are the key to children vaping. Why do you feel that banning vaping products and banning flavors is the wrong approach to helping adults quit?
Well, first I'm going to give the sort of like the answer that's based on data, and that is, it's very, very clear when you look at polls of current vapors. They like sweet and fruit flavored vape liquid more than what tastes like a cigarette, menthol, tobacco. Some would even say mint kind of fits in that because it tastes a little like menthol. But they don't prefer those. They actually prefer the sweet and fruit flavors. So when you ban things, and it drives me crazy, it's unbelievable to me. I was watching the White House meeting on the potential to ban flavors, and you had very smart people in the room, senators and agency heads, who were saying, nope, flavors just for kids. That's the only thing. The only people who use flavors are kids. And it told me very clearly, these people have never spoken to vapors. Well, first of all, they haven't looked at the data, okay? Because you don't have to talk to you don't have to go into a vape shop and talk to the guy behind the counter, the owner, probably the owner of the vape shop, and figure out what his biggest sellers are. You don't have to do that. You can actually just look at the data, the CDC data that says, oh, okay, most people are buying, peach flavor, mango flavor, whatever, creme brulee, right, or hot chocolate, some of these sweet flavors. So you can look at the data, or some of these smart guys in the room could actually talk to the vaping community, which we do, you do, I do, and I know a number of people in our space, in this harm reduction space. We spend an awful lot of time talking to those people and sort of trying to understand what they like. So look, it's not even an arguable fact that kids are the only ones who buy sweet and fruit flavor and dessert flavored e-liquid. They are not the only consumers. But I also love this question because it just goes against all common sense. At what point do you grow out of liking the taste of a peach? I love that they act like, I'm a grown up, I can't like vanilla flavor. First of all, also, I love the idea that creme brulee, they always use creme brulee as if creme brulee is some like major kid dessert. Okay. But I like the taste of bubble gum. I won't say how old I am, but I'm not a kid, okay? And I like the taste of cake, and I like the taste of vanilla, and I like the taste of peaches and mangoes. And so it's when I hear people with a straight face, right? Like Mitt Romney, sorry, Senator Romney, says with a straight face, it's only kids who like these flavors. I'm like, I know you have kids. I know you have a dozen grandkids or more. Like, but you also have grown-up kids, and you're around grown-ups who eat dessert. So it's just so silly to hear these kinds of excuses. The other thing that I think is really important to bring up when you talk about flavors is that in talking to vapors, but again, this is also, you can find this in the data. There is a real fear among vapors that if given the only choice of going back to a tobacco flavor or a menthol flavor, which those are the only choices now, right?
Yeah.
That it will trigger something in them. I had a great podcast with a woman who runs vaping. She has a couple shops in Illinois, and she talked, and it's heartbreaking. It's like so awful that, she said, and these vapors can still get these flavors in different kinds of e-cigarettes, but we're talking about the Juuls, right? And we're talking about the encased. But she talked about how if she can't have the flavors, if she's forced to go back to a tobacco flavor or a menthol flavor, it will trigger it. It will trigger her. She will want the heat on her lips. She'll want the feel of a real cigarette. And because there is a difference. There is a difference between the feel of vaping and the feel of a cigarette. And there is a legitimate concern there. And so when people say this and just flippantly say, oh, well, they can still get tobacco flavor or menthol flavor, you are going to cause, those bans are going to cause people to go back to cigarettes. They just are, especially if it's harder to get, because you can get cigarettes. Cigarettes are still easy to get. Okay. The cancer causing combustible cigarettes are easy to get. It is the e-cigarette that's harder to get. And so that too will drive people back.
Yeah, I completely agree. Not to mention that some of, if you actually talk to vapors, there are a significant amount of vapors that are women. There are a significant amount of women that own vaping businesses, and shutting down, banning e-cigarettes completely, banning flavors, that's only going to limit the amount of businesses that are allowed to operate in this space.
Yeah.
It's completely disheartening to see that they're going against the science, the data, and to not even just talk to vapors.
I'm not one to toss around the word sexist, but if you also look at the data and the fact that women have by far succeed at quitting combustible cigarettes if they switch to vaping over patches and gum. Okay. Well, it's a pretty sexist policy if you ban the one smoking cessation product that helps women the best. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that leaders of the, FDA are a bunch of sexists and they want to, they really want to sock it to women. But you are pursuing a policy that will hurt women in particular. And that is something that every public health official should scratch their head about. Why in the world would the federal government, I'm a taxpayer. I don't understand why I am helping to support essentially sexist policies. So women and men deserve equality in healthcare policy, and a policy that bans a product that in particular helps women is a sexist policy. So it is really it is a bad policy from any way you look at it.
Thank you so much, Julie. It was great to have you chatting with me today about, this absolute madness. Who knows what will happen? Obviously, Trump has made the decision to defund the WHO from the U.S. Taxpayers aren't going to be funding them anymore. So hopefully we might see some slight change if they are desperate to get their funds back. But
well, the WHO deserves everything they get, but while we defund the WHO, and honestly, I don't care. I don't much care about the WHO, but I will tell you, Trump has a lot of work to do in cleaning up the FDA and the CDC and some of these other public health agencies. Maybe he can use some of the money that was going to the WHO to do a little cleaning house.
Yeah, that's optimistic, but I hope that happens. Well, thank you, Julie. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.